What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Trill Bro Dude, and March Madness is here. We got the college basketball tournament going on. Just finished up some conference tournaments this last week, getting our brackets ready for this upcoming weekend. And in classic You Know Ball fashion, we are going to be celebrating with a redraft of the last draft that we had, the 2025 draft, one of our favorite drafts in recent memory. And normally when we do these things, I try to be, I'm such a gentleman. I'm always thinking of others on this podcast.
Yep.
And I say, Sam, you can have the first pick. But because I know what you're going to do, we're going twist mode, baby.
I was going to say, I actually want you to have the first pick in this one. So you can save me from myself.
With the first pick in the 2025 NBA Rookie Redraft, I'm just getting right into it. No breaks, baby. We are getting right into it. I'm going to be taking the best white player from Duke with the first pick in this draft.
I knew you were going to do this.
Con Kniffle, baby.
I knew you were going to do this.
Demon Con. Conservative Con. The Confederacy. Come on down. Come on down. I really do think that this is actually a debate, though. Like
I was just gonna say, I like genuinely putting it aside. I was like, it's kind of funny because like it's inverted. You know what I'm saying? Where like now Khan is the safe bet, but it's like, is Flag's trajectory and like do you project like his offense and frankly his defense to improve enough where he like catches Khan? Because Khan is like a like lights out, already custom made, great offensive player, almost an offensive engine, really. Like he maybe not quite there, but pretty close. About as close
I would say one of the best second options in the NBA already offensively.
Yeah. So and Flag has not, Flag said like I would say a pretty standard hyped number one pick season. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think he's been disappointed. I don't think he's wowed anyone.
Rough start.
Yeah.
Found his footing, was doing amazing like probably 2 months ago at this point.
Yep.
And now he's kind of just struggled as he's come back from injury. Khan is also almost 2 years older than him. Like you got to keep that in mind. Flag is, I think he's the second youngest player in the NBA, and the youngest player in the NBA is Noah Essengay, who has barely played in the NBA at all. Yeah. So you have to keep all of this in mind. Khan got drafted to a team where he was really the third option, we thought, coming into the season. Yeah. Like we figured if LaMelo and Brandon Miller stayed healthy, he would be the third option at any given time. And he has progressively grown into that second option. Now Miller still occasionally has these games where he's absolutely lights out and he can run some offense as well. And LaMelo is the thing that makes that offense go for sure. That's undeniable. If you look at the on-offs when it's LaMelo versus Khan and in both of them together versus just LaMelo. Like LaMelo is still the engine of that offense for sure. But Khan is basically already such a additive offensive player, one of like on a legitimate trajectory to be the second greatest shooter in NBA history behind only Steph Curry. And if you think about like, I mean, Khan's basically already broken the rookie 3-point record. He's going to shatter it this year. He leads the league in 3-pointers made. The thing that we all liked Khan, I think that coming into the draft, I was a little bit higher on his star level outcomes than you were, but I also expected Khan to have struggles as a rookie because he was going to have to adapt to NBA athleticism and some of the stuff that I was concerned about his defense and getting to loose balls and things that are just kind of like you bake into the equation with under athletic players finishing around the rim. He's kind of solved a lot of that stuff in a way that I had not really anticipated him really figuring out until he was in his mid-20s in the NBA. And he's already was in the All-Star conversation this year, probably will make the All-Star game next year, and has given light to one of the most depressing franchises in the history of the NBA, along with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, and they are currently in the play-in, and that's something that no one saw coming. I mean, obviously, LaMelo being healthy is a massive part of that, but Khan is, obviously just as important to this team. so far this season. And he really went to such a perfect situation for himself, but he also would fit on so many other teams.
Yeah.
Like Con could have went to any team in this top 10 and made them better from the jump. Like there's no team that he would have went to and wouldn't have made a better team as a rookie. So that is something that I take into factor here when I'm talking Con versus Flag. The ceiling for Flag, like you said, with the defense, the age curve, when they have a more normal team around him, I think is another thing. Like I said, I thought that this team coming into the year was better than your average team that got the number 1 pick in the draft, but Derek Lively has not been available at all. Anthony Davis, that whole situation went sideways. Their guard play is about as bad as you can imagine for a team that got a guy that was always going to have a little bit of adjustment when he came into the NBA as an on-ball guy. And Flag also has scored back-to-back 40-point games in his rookie season, has potential to be a number 1 option with legit defense, and might end up becoming a perennial MVP candidate in time. But I've said it before, if you're this good as a rookie and you are someone who has the pedigree of Con, led I don't know if it was EYBL, but he led one of the amateur high school tournaments in scoring when he was in high school. He was a top recruit, went to Duke, performed well with Flag, performed well without Flag in the ACC tournament, won tournament MVP, won summer league MVP, he just is going to win rookie of the year too.
Yes.
You can't underestimate this guy because you have this idea in your head that he's going to have a ceiling because of his lack of athleticism. We've talked about it before. I think when evaluating players in the NBA, unless you are truly a non-NBA athlete with negative size usually too, you really have to think about who are some of the best players in the NBA right now and what did we project for them as athletes coming out in the draft. We talked about, look at the top 20 players in the NBA. There's a handful of guys that you can point to. Jokic, Luka. There's only a handful of guys at the top of the league that you would say their best skill is their athleticism. It's not you have Giannis, obviously, you have guys like Anthony Edwards, Donovan Mitchell, sure. And those guys obviously have other skills in addition to their athleticism.
To your point though, those guys don't end up being those guys who you do think of as overwhelming athleticism. Those guys usually kind of flare out a little bit. Look at Zion and Ja, dude. Those are two of the guys that I would bring up. I think the only guy recently that you would kind of put in that mold maybe is Anthony Edwards, but Ants also was kind of that sort of player, and he's kind of turned himself into more of a skilled player and more of a balanced player as he's developed. Kind of what he is now,
the guys I brought up, Anthony Edwards, Giannis, and Donovan Mitchell, Ant and Mitchell are two of the best shooters in the NBA. Off the dribble, off the catch. Also, they just have crazy bags. They're just super talented. And then Giannis obviously is a freak of nature and is a incredible passer and playmaker and great defender and has all of these. So what I'm trying to get at here is I hate when we equate just upside with athleticism. And sometimes athleticism doesn't even look, obviously I'm not going to sit here and argue that Con is the most athletic guy in the NBA, but he certainly has some traits to his game. He's certainly super strong. He's got a decent decel. He has elements of that you need to become a potential star player in the NBA. And he already has one of the greatest skills probably, that we've seen translate immediately in the NBA in quite some time.
That was just, you said this, but I just really want to hit this home. This is insane outlier production for any rookie of any pedigree. You know what I'm saying? These guys just, basically Con is, I don't want to barring insane injury, he's fail proof at this point. This guy is going to be an all-star multiple times in his career going forward. I used to make fun of Zach Lowe for calling him 10 times Scotty Barnes, 10-time all-star Scotty Barnes before he was anointed and had Con actually probably will be in that range. I would say he's probably looking at a 7 to 10 time all-star career if he can even develop a little bit. And it certainly seems like he's going to that way. And I think the other reason I think it's very defensible to take him over Flag is because he also, as we've seen, scales and fits onto a lot of different teams. Like that's the problem. I don't say problem with Cooper Flag, but like with any of these guys who are traditional number one picks, you need these guys to either be one of the 5 best players in the NBA or develop some sort of secondary, tertiary like skill that allows them to better play with other stars. You know what I'm saying? Like, and
I think that was why we were so high on Flag as a prospect, was because it was like, even if that doesn't work out for him, like Anthony Davis was the guy that I always said, like a wing version of Anthony Davis in terms of like being additive as a defensive player that you can kind of help build an elite defense around. And then he can be part of a winning situation, right? Like I was like, even if you don't hit that higher end top 5, top 7 player or whatever it is. And I still, to be clear, I still do think there's a clear pathway. Most rookie wings suck. Most rookie wings don't do what Flag did this year in terms of the scoring output, the playmaking, all that. Like, I know that it hasn't exactly translated to impacting high level offense or winning yet, but I think in time it probably will end up getting there. And I think that the biggest uphill battle with Flag is really the fact that he got drafted to this Dallas team. And it's the opposite for Con, where Con's, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Con was lucky to get drafted to the Charlotte Hornets.
Really.
And Cooper Flag was not so lucky to get drafted to the Dallas Mavericks, which
Can
is
you imagine
insane.
If he got drafted by like the Spurs? Like,
I mean, it would be so insanely embarrassment of riches if he ended up getting drafted to a team. Like, if either of these guys got drafted to the Spurs, it would be, and I think that's a conversation we'll have in a little bit about another player that was drafted to the Spurs. But
yes,
I mean, obviously I'm assuming you're going to take.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's just go to the third pick, because I'm taking Flag. We are not beating the allegations here at Ball taking white players off.
I'm not going to take Hugo third. So
yeah, I'll don't worry. I'll get to him.
Sam will take Kalkbrenner fourth.
Is there even another white guy?
Kasparis Yakuchone's fifth.
Yeah, I will never. That's a Miami Heat player.
I was gonna say, I was like, all right, I think I just ran through every. Oh no, Maxime Reynaud. We could take.
Yeah, Maxime Reynaud. Then I took Danny Wolf. All
right, you just took it too far. So we had the Flag. Now, once again, this we've talked about it time and time again with this upcoming draft for the Mavericks. About as important as you could possibly get for a draft for a team that just drafted a potential superstar in Cooper Flag. They had to trade Anthony Davis at the low point of his trade value.
Yep.
And now we don't know what's happening with Derek Lively. Now, if you told me this Derek Lively thing, once again, just like with Edie, Lively, the foot stuff always scares me with bigs.
Yeah, sure.
Especially a big that relies on its athleticism as much as Derek Lively does. But if you told me they could get a top 5 pick in this draft, let's say top 7 pick in this draft, one of the guards, you know what I mean?
I was just gonna say that's the big thing with this is they really lucked out because they're one of the only teams that like desperately needs a guard, and you're in the right draft for that. So
especially if you fall out of the top 4, like you'll just take one of the top 4 guys if you're in the top 4, and you'll figure out the guard stuff later, because that's usually easier to figure out than finding like a superstar wing to pair with someone, or you just put Boozer and Flag together and you figure out the rest later, or Debansa or whoever. But the guard situation for them, which is likely the range that they end up in unless they jump up, like you said, couldn't have worked out better. You could get into a potential situation where if they fall to like, even if they're at like 5, 6, or 7, teams that are drafting in that range might be like, we already have our point guard. Like the Utah Jazz are not taking a point guard. They're just not. Like the Keontae George is their guy. He's locked in there. There are teams. I don't know if the Wizards would do that because Trey Young is obviously older, but they just traded for Trey. He is another guy that's position locked. Like there are teams that could end up taking, and you could get the guy that you view as the number 1 point guard, whether that's Acuff, whether that's Flemings, whether that
Wagner.
is Wagler, Mikal Brown, any of those guys that
Any
you
of
might
them,
view as a potential guy to pair
I
with
kinda
Cooper
like
Flag
all
moving
of them
forward.
now.
What's
I'm
that?
gonna be honest. Like, I kind of like all those guys. I'm gonna be like they all have different sensibilities. I was probably the lowest on Acuff, but the tournament play's been pretty. He's shown me something, man. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm falling for it, but
No, I mean, we'll talk more about the draft stuff later, but if you had told me, I'm trying to think of like the idea of Mikal Brown is probably the most complementary to Cooper Flag, I think, of any of these
yeah,
guys
for sure.
at the
Yeah.
top, like an athletic 6'4", we'll see if he's actually 6'4" guard that just hoists threes and has potential to be like a high level playmaker. Like that's the idea of him is probably the best. But like, yeah, I mean, Acuff was incredible in the SEC tournament. I've been watching him for a few weeks now, and I do think that a lot of people might be overthinking it a little bit. I know that the weaknesses are the weaknesses, but he is very clearly going to be a good offensive player in the NBA, I think. And I think that it's kind of just, it's pick whatever flavor of point guard you enjoy the most, because they're all very different.
That's the thing that's so crazy is they're all different. Yeah, like Fleming is like the boomer point guard, like iteration, and Wagler is just this uber skilled big guard, like that it can kind of fill it up from anywhere, and Acuff is the hooper.
Yeah, they're really all different. I mean,
Yeah.
And then Brown is the high 3-point volume,
the calculator rat.
I
Right.
don't know if any of them. I think Wagler
They
would
might not
probably
like him, but the idea of him is a calculator rap. player,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So,
yes, for sure.
Mhm.
We'll talk more about that later, but that's going to be a very interesting thing when we get to draft time for the Mavericks, because there's so much that rides on this pick for not just Cooper Flag, but for the Mavericks' future in general. As we've pointed out time and time again, this is really their last time to pair him. And look, I know Ryan Nembhard's had a nice season for someone that was undrafted, but like he's not going to be someone that you're pairing with Flag as a starting point guard moving forward.
He'd be great as a 6-man.
He probably will be their 6-man
Yeah.
next season.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like,
and if
I
you want
like them hard, like, but take a point guard, man.
they'll be taking a point guard. I don't think that they're going to be factoring in Ryan Nembhard into their plans for this. Okay, so after you took Flag with the second pick.
Yep.
So the last thing on Flag, actually.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm worried about the most, not with Flag, it's not Flag's fault at all. And I talked about this a little bit. And I do expect by the time that he's in his prime that the NBA will just look different in 6 years. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Because he's really still 6 years away from entering his prime.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about, because he came into the NBA so young that it does feel like he has this unlimited path to just continuing to like think about, like, he's kind of had, obviously Tatum got drafted to a much better team, and he had the luxury of being able to kind of be more of a role player as a rookie.
Well, I was gonna say he had the con thing, kind of.
Right,
like,
sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And but by the end of his rookie season, we're like, oh no, Tatum is that guy. Like, if Flag got drafted to a better team, we could be having that conversation. Like, pretty much any team other than the team that took him in the top 4, I think we would be having that conversation.
I feel like Cooper Flag has been pretty much exactly as advertised. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a pretty he's at a pretty standard number 1 overall pick. Like, I'd say I'd say he's done better than, like, for example, Cade did when Cade came out, like in kind of a similar situation. But again, he's also probably not as skilled as Cade is. You know what I'm saying? And like some of that needs to get like translate. Like I would say I'm not worried about Flag at all, but I also haven't been like impressed by Flag. You know what I'm saying? Like this is pretty much exactly
that stretch he had in January was pretty incredible. I mean,
it was great. No, I had very high expectations for him. We are talking about one of the most hyped prospects. I mean, Wemby obviously is the number 1, but I'd say probably you'd have to go back to Zion to find a
and
prospect as hyped as him.
And similar to other guys that come in with like elite skills already.
Yeah.
Wemby had the defense already, like his literally day one in the NBA in a way that I don't think that Flag could have imagined. Like Wemby's offense, people do forget Wemby's offense was pretty rough at first. Like he had, and he still has games where I'm surprised at how raw he can still look offensively. Even though he's one of the 4 or 5 best players in the NBA already at his age. But Wemby's rookie season, I mean, by the time the end of Wemby's rookie season, it was like, okay, good luck to the rest of the NBA. But to start his rookie season, he was not coming out of the gate being a world beater. So like I said, there's an unlimited pathway, I think, for Flag to continue to improve, and most wings in his mold hit their peak at 5 years from now. Like most wings in Flag's mold, whether it's guys like Jason Tatum, who obviously progressively got better throughout his rookie contract, someone like Jalen Johnson, who just made the All-Star game for the first time this year. He's like 24, 25 years old. Like we're still so far away from that for Flag. He's going to be 19 entering next season. So that's just kind of the context that I wanted to add here to say why Flag has such a unlimited pathway upwards. And even though we didn't instantly translate in the same way that Khan did, I'm definitely not worried about him. What I was going to say before, and I need you to pay attention for this part, because many people are wondering, does Trill have a humiliation kink? We're at the 3rd pick, which is where the Sixers took VJ Edgecombe. Yes. I love VJ to death. And I had VJ 3rd on my board going into the draft. I had Harper, Khan, and VJ in my 2nd tier. That was my 2nd tier.
Yeah.
If you had asked me this 2 months ago, I would have said VJ with a bullet for sure. I think I'm going to take Harper.
I was going to say, I think I would take Harper if I were here with you. And I'm not even a Harper guy. I was kind of questioning Harper the entire process.
Here's the thing with Harper. He's another guy that got drafted to a perfect situation.
Yeah.
And basically was able to go into a team where he is the 3rd guard on this team. So he's not going to put up the same stats that some of these other rookies are going to put up.
You might even be able to say he's, I guess, 3rd guard. Yeah. No.
3rd guard in the rotation. Yeah, like he put Fox and Castle start. He's 3rd.
I was thinking 4th option. He is like the 4th option. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's very simple. He still averages 22 minutes a game. Like he's not playing VJ Khan Flag minutes. Like he's still like, he hasn't had a game over 30 minutes in that I'm looking at recently in like the last few weeks. But what he has done is been incredibly impressive in a limited amount of minutes, and has occasional games where he just absolutely goes off. And the last 2 months, he's kind of turned a corner. The pull-up jumper looks way better than it did early in the season, where it just never went in. When the shots were on, that was the thing that I worried the most about with him, where I was like, if he can't shoot off the dribble, like, I don't care how good you are at getting downhill, unless you're literally Ja Morant 4 years ago, there's no pathway for you to become a star guard unless you get better at that. Well, he's gotten better at that slowly. He went from shooting an effective field goal percentage in like the mid-20s 2 months ago, and now he's up to the mid-30s. So he's pulled that up. He's probably somewhere in that 40 to 50 effective field goal percentage range, which is where most of these guys lay, except for Khan and Trey and the guys who are like known as 3-point shooters off of the dribble. So that's one element of the game that he's improved. The one thing I would like to see, the 2 things that I would like to see with him. Now, you can't really complain about the results, because the results are this guy gets to the rim on a per minute basis pretty much more than any other rookie guard that we've seen, other than like the craziest athlete guys you can think of. The guys that I've mentioned before, Ja Morant, John Wall, those kind of guys. Like he's reaching the rim attempts. If you look at the rim attempts per 36 minutes in the NBA, it's like all of the guys that are best at getting to the rim, including bigs and wings, mostly bigs. And then it's Dylan Harper. And that is the thing that he can use to build out the rest of his game. And the thing that I want to see with him is the passing and playmaking. I definitely want to see him continue to get better at that. He doesn't have to do that right now because, like you said, he went to a team where he's the fourth option. He can come off the bench, get buckets. There are games where he gets crazy tunnel vision, where it's just like, man, I would really like to see him pass a little bit more, especially when you have someone like Wemby. But he got drafted to a team where Wemby clears the paint for him. He can get unlimited driving lanes, which I think if any of these guys went to San Antonio, they would have benefited from that. I think, honestly, VJ going to a situation like the Sixers, where we thought he was going to get a chance to play with Joel Embiid potentially, and now he's playing with, honestly, kind of terrible spacing on the Sixers. That's probably hurt him the most in terms of as a scorer on drives. But I don't think that, like, Harper did that when he was in college and he didn't even need good spacing. And that was the thing that made me the most excited about him as a prospect. And he's 6'5", incredible handle, can get to his spots as a scorer, is living at the rim, and his rim efficiency, I think, will continue to get better. He's like shooting in the low 60s around the rim. I think he's going to be like a 70% finisher. And that is just something that it makes that going to make that offense long-term with him and Wemby just impossible to stop. And then the other thing that I would say is that, like I said, I believe that he will become at least a passable shooter in time. And that is the biggest determining factor for his star upside for me. And I do think that he will get there. So yeah, I think it's extremely close between him and VJ. Like, I think it's a kind of, are you betting? And as you know, I generally tend to lean towards betting on guys that have like potential real star skills that I think long-term they can develop and get to. Whereas I just think VJ is very obviously going to be a impacting winning guy for the next decade. Harper, if he can become a pull-up shooter, just has such a crazy all-around offensive game that there might be heights that he can reach that are, like extremely, like I said, maybe one of the best second options in the NBA to Wemby. And at times, I compared him to like basically Wemby's version of Jamal Murray potentially. On championship teams.
I don't. It's kind of weird because it's like, on the one hand, like the passing stuff that you were talking about, I don't even like hold that. And you said this as well. Like, I don't even like really hold that against Harper because it's not really asked of him. You know what I'm saying? Because he's just kind of like a role player essentially.
Yeah. And it's not like he's like a black hole on offense at all. He averages like 5 assists per 36. Like, that's very good for a rookie point guard. Like, it's not to say that he doesn't do that.
It's one of those things where, like, honestly, he's kind of, it's Schrodinger's Wemby. He's in Schrodinger's Wemby right now, where, like, I don't know, like, is he disappointing or not? It's impossible to tell when you're playing with Wemby because it just looks good no matter what. You know what I'm saying? So like, if he left, like, he could be even better. You know what I'm saying? Like, he might actually be better than he looks because he's playing with Wemby and he's playing.
He would certainly put up more stats.
Yeah. Like, I just don't know what to think of Dylan Harper, but I do agree with you that, like, seeing him in the NBA, because that was my big thing with Harper. I was like, if this guy can't shoot, like, when have you ever seen a guard? I don't care how big they are or how successful
they're all on the Spurs.
Yeah. I guess
their whole team is just guards who have shaky shots. I mean, Fox has become a good shooter, but when he came into the league, he certainly wasn't.
No,
honestly, that's probably the closest comp for Harper, like a bigger, more filled out De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
And that's a hell of a player.
That's a great player. Yeah. So, like, I think you did the right thing because I had the same question about that. I don't get to do anything funny. I'm going to take VJ, obviously. I did like look, I didn't realize, I guess I haven't been like locked in on the Grizzlies because I was like, oh, well, I better like look at him versus Coward. I didn't realize how kind of its wheels have kind of come off a little bit for Coward. Like, at least
Coward
wise.
Early in the season, I was like, this guy is I kept calling him an efficiency farmer, and all the Grizzlies fans were getting mad at me. And then they were like, watch the games. And I watched the games and I'm like, I'm not saying he's not a good player. I think he's an awesome player. What I'm saying is that I feel like he only takes the most efficient shots and they're all going in right now.
Yeah.
And that was never going to be a sustainable level that he was at. Like, VJ cooled off after the first week. Like, the first week of the season was like, VJ looked like the best player in the class, was destroying all worlds. He was making everything. He looked super confident. And as the season has gone on, he's just a rookie. And, he's kind of hit he's had ebbs and flows throughout his rookie season. Coward was literally like miles ahead of the other rookies until Khan caught him in like December, basically, statistically.
Yeah.
And
I
Coward
didn't
also
realize he's down to 34% from three. Did you know that?
I don't worry about that. But yeah, but I do agree that is
Yeah.
what I think his ceiling is going to be is like how good of a shooter is he and how good can he become as an on-ball like shooter and playmaker.
Well, and he's also 22.
He's
Like,
older, certainly.
you know, like he looks good. It was definitely a good pick by the Grizzlies, but like I was kind of like, oh wow, did we like totally miss on this guy like as like a star? Because I didn't think there was like any chance of it being a star, and now he looks a little bit. We'll get to Coward later. I just was kind of surprised because I had in my mind that like Coward would be in this range, and then I went back and I was like, oh well, I guess I just haven't been watching the Grizzlies because he's
Well,
like
the Grizzlies just
nowhere
fell
near
apart.
these guys. Yeah,
they haven't. There's
Yeah.
no. Once they did what they did at the trade deadline, it was like, what is the point in watching this unless you love Cedric Coward and Ty Jerome? Like, there's really no point in watching them. They're not going to be. They're just fishing for lottery balls at this point.
Yeah,
they're not going to be in the play-in. There's nothing you can really take from this. The thing with the VJ, like, if you were to debate this, I think early in the season, it was a really interesting debate to me between these two guys when they were looking like the two best rookies.
That's
like
what I'm saying.
Yeah. It was like the first month of the season. It was like an interesting debate. VJ is obviously he's 2 years younger. And VJ, the thing about VJ, the two things that I want to just say with him real quick. The first thing is that he pretty much instantly was one of the 3 or 4 most important players on a playoff team, at least early in the season, that, like I said, impacted winning in so many different ways. He's basically going to be kind of obviously a different version of what we were talking about with Khan earlier, where Khan has like this elite skill that will just make him impact any sort of offense when he's the second or third option. VJ is kind of a gap filler in that he is going to just do so many little hustle things in addition to some of the flashes that he has shown with the ball and as a scorer and as a shooter this year. He is at one point, I'm not sure if this is still true because DeJounte Murray did pass him, but in total loose balls, he was leading the NBA. He was getting up there in terms of deflections, steals, all of these things that were kind of the reason why we gave him such a high floor, is that he was like this explosive athlete with a crazy motor and could potentially refine his skills and in time become like a high level starter, if not star, in the NBA. The thing that I've talked about time and time again with him is like everything will be determined by VJ Edgecombe's handle. If he can get stronger, and because now he does things with the ball where I'm like, his handle still looks loose and he doesn't turn the ball over that much. He can get to his spots, and he occasionally has stretches where he's a really good pull-up shooter for like a single game or several games in a row where he can kind of put things together. And that combined with the fact that he was like a 78% free throw shooter, I think, in college. He's at 82%, but was at 75. He should, for the last 2 months, it's not a crazy volume because he doesn't get the line as much as you would like for someone with his skill set, but he's shooting over 90% from the line in the last 60 attempts. Like, he doesn't miss free throws right now. And that I still think that there's a level that he can reach as a pull-up shooter that will make him a potentially deadly offensive player, but it's all related to the handle and strength. And then from there, he can build out his game as a pull-up shooter. And as like, honestly, the thing that really I talked about earlier with like Wemby clearing the paint, and whenever VJ gets the chance to play with Joel and he clears the paint for him, it's like two different players when he's driving to the basket, because when they crowd the paint and there's like, he doesn't even try to drive to the basket because he just doesn't trust the handle. And he seemingly can't really get to the basket and finish when Joel isn't in the game. He settles for a lot of floaters. He settles for a lot of mid-rangers. And those are things I want to see him add to his game. But the combination of having a cleared out paint and better talent around him, I think in time could make him reach a level. Like, I still think that the best version of VJ Edgecombe will probably look more like the third best offensive player on the team, but additive in every other possible way when he's not like a high level on ball scorer and playmaker, and he'll get better at that stuff over time as he adds more strength, as the handle hopefully gets better over time. Like, I think that we said before, like, I think this is the strongest top 4 we've seen in maybe ever. Like, it is what
draft. I just love this draft. This draft is, and the next draft might be better. I don't know, but maybe this next draft falls off after 8, but like, this next draft is also crazy. Like,
coming into this next year's draft, it feels better than last year's draft.
Yes, I
like
agree.
And this draft so far, the top 4, like, I think that these guys are all very clearly have pathways to be like high level players on contenders potentially.
And I think a couple of these guys behind them that we're not talking about are probably going to develop into like those type of guys. Like, one of like Queen or Fears or Disgrace Faley or Trey Johnson, one of these other guys I think is also going to have a good career at some point. So
the top 4 is basically still the top 4, which going into the draft, I mean, I think you had Trey in your top 4, but this was my top 4. This was the NBA's top 4 going into the draft. Who do you want to take after VJ with the 5th pick?
It's your pick.
No, I took VJ, didn't I? Oh no, you took VJ.
Yeah.
Oh, then I'll take Cedric Coward.
Okay.
I'll just make it easy. I do think that Cedric Coward is another guy that, like, I want to give some context.
Yeah.
When we talk about the rookie wall, most of these guys haven't played this much basketball in their entire life. Like,
yes.
VJ played 30 years last year in college. Harper didn't even play that because he got injured. Flag got hurt at Duke. Khan is really the only one that's seemingly not hit the rookie wall with his team so far, and he played a ton of basketball last year because Duke made a deep run and he didn't get hurt during the season in the same way that some of these other guys did. So I'm going to take Cedric Coward here. Cedric Coward, keep in mind, basically didn't play basketball last year. I feel like that is another part of this, is that, like, he came out of the gate on fire because his legs were so fresh. I mean, if he was on this Duke team, they would stomp to the national championship. We could have had a situation where he got the chance to play with Boozer on this team at Duke, and they would have just absolutely demolished teams. But he decided to not go to Duke, decided to come to the NBA instead, was the 11th pick in the draft, and it was an incredibly smart decision by him because he got paid, and he's going to be closer to that second contract already, and he's 22 years old. Like, every other guy we've drafted so far is 19 or 20 right now.
Yes.
He's the only one that is 22. And as I've said before, like, he didn't play much basketball at all last year. I think he played 7 games, maybe 12 games last year at Washington State before he got injured. So he had these fresh legs coming into the season, was absolutely demolishing. Didn't even play in summer league last year. All these guys played in summer league except for Coward. So he came in the freshest of everyone and showed what he can do for the first 20 or 30 games in the NBA. And like you said, he's hit the wall a little bit. This team is completely just not something. Like, this is all basically, you know, I'm sure they'll turn out some NBA players from this, like Javon Small, who was in this draft, will probably be an NBA player because Memphis always just finds those guys in second round and undrafted and stuff like that. But he's playing with G Leaguers right now. Honestly, so is VJ. That's the other thing, is like VJ's been playing a lot with G Leaguers recently. Flag has this year. Khan and Harper are the only ones that haven't. And I think that Coward, I've said this before with wings, even the guys that come in older as wings, those are the guys that are most likely to still have star level upside in their NBA careers. Like Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, Jalen Williams. There's a lot of guys that have come in that are a little bit older as wings, and they still become potential stars. And if you look at the per 36 stats, his per 36 stats for a rookie are really good. He is going to be, like, I trust that he's going to be one of the best wing shooters in the NBA. And I think that he is a good defensive player already. And I think that in time, the thing that has surprised me the most with him is that the playmaking is better than I had anticipated. He's averaging almost 4 or 6 4 assists per 36, which that for a rookie wing is really good and something that hopefully he can build on moving forward. Memphis believes in him enough that they were willing to be like, look, we have him and Edie, assuming Edie can get healthy, and then we'll try to add a top pick in this draft. And then we think that that could be our core along with the other picks we've stacked from our star trades. And they at least believe that he can be, you know, one of the 3 or 4 best players on a good team. And I do trust one, especially once they get guys in-house, I trust their talent development staff. And I also just trust their scouting in general to figure out who kind of stands above the rest. Coward was the one who rose for me the most in this process. I went back and I looked at my board. You know how every year you always have someone that you like, but you don't want it. Like Jalen Tyson was my guy in 2024, where I was like, man, I really like him. But then I look back on my board and I'm like, why did I have him at like 17? Like I should have had him at like 12 or 8.
Yeah.
I went back and I looked at my board with Coward, because Coward was someone that I was not super familiar with just because he was not playing all that much. And I went back and I looked at it and I still didn't get high enough on him in a way that I probably should have. I know that Chuck was on that. Maxwell told us during the process they both were extremely high on him, and they both ended up having him in like their top 6 or 7. I ended up having him like 11th on my board, and he's probably the one guy that I had wished in retrospect he was the mystery box player. So I kind of hedged my bets with him, where I was like, well, if he's just a guy, I only had him at 11, but if he's really good, I had him at 11. So that's probably the player I would say, because all these other guys I had in my top 4 before the draft, him and there's one other player that we'll get to in a little bit, they've rose their stock the most, in my opinion, relative to my expectations for them pre-draft. And I think it was mainly because we just didn't know as much about him as we knew about the other prospects that we're talking about here. He was not a one and done. He did not go to a massive school like a lot of these other guys did. And he also didn't play a ton of games last year. So I think Coward has a chance to be, one of the 4 or 5 best players in this draft, and is basically the kind of player that everyone seemingly is always looking for. So I feel like this next pick is the first decision that we have to make in this redraft, which is the 6th pick. This is where the draft really starts. Because in my mind, there's really no way that you can argue anyone else over the top 5.
I think there are ways to argue. Coward's age in particular, I think, opens him up a little bit.
Sure.
I think the top 4 are locked with a bullet. I think you made the right pick. I probably would have taken Coward if I had the 5th pick, but I did have him kind of in a tier here. So where's the camera? I want everyone to look at me, okay? Because there's a lot of different ways you could go. You could go, oh, Colin Murray-Boyles, he's doing great stuff on TV. No. Oh, look at Derek Queen. Derek Queen's a great player. No. You know what you have to do? You have to stick by what you believe in a redraft. It's not about new information. It's about knowing in your gut and proving that you're right. I'm still taking Trey Johnson 6th. I
knew you were doing it.
I'm not. We're not fucking retreating. No back down. No surrender. Jagar, Domen. Don't talk to me about production. Don't talk to me about being good at basketball. Don't talk to me about being on a good team. This is about sticking to your priors, not taking any information into account whatsoever, and still looking at a guy and being like, that guy nice. And Trey Johnson's still nice. I'm sorry. I had him number 2 on my board. I don't regret it. I'm not going back. I still think this guy is a star. I still think this guy is going to be that eventually he's going to figure it out. He's a scorer, man. I think the Wizards are particularly tragic. I think that when this thing snaps into place for him, man, he's going to be great. Being realistic, I don't actually believe in the ceiling of anyone left. Like as good as Queen is, I have too many concerns about long-term fit for him. Colin Murray-Boyles, I think, could end up as like a Caruso type, like a bit, you know what I'm saying? Like not exactly that player, but like a guy like that where he's like contributing, and like you could say that he's the 3rd or the 4th best player on like a championship team. But I still think that you still have to kind of go for upside with some of these guys. And nothing about Trey's play has like alarmed me. You know what I'm saying? Like I still believe in the work ethic. I'm not backing down. I'm still taking Trey. This is still very much an ideas thing for me, but I don't believe in the futures of any of the guys left on the board enough to be chased off of Trey, I guess is what I would say.
I was looking at his stats, assuming that he just had a good game against the Celtics. And I learned that he did not have a good game.
No, he had a terrible game. No.
Which is why I'm surprised that this, because I was the assumption that I made was that you watched him and he has, to be clear, he has had good games, but a lot of Trey's good games are just ball go in basket because he is a shooter and a scorer. Like that is kind of what once again, other than Coward, who surprised me a little bit just because he had more to his game than I had anticipated. And Khan, I obviously didn't expect Khan to be this good. Like I love Khan, but he was just not on this level.
No,
pretty much all of these guys are exactly what I thought they would be in the NBA. Yes. Like almost to a T. It's kind of creepy. Trey's another guy where he's exactly what I thought he was going to be, which is that like incredible shooter, crazy range. What else is there? And that's the thing that I do worry about. And I ended up having him pretty high on my board, and I dropped him actually to 6 on my board around the time of the draft, just because I did worry about some of the other things that he obviously like, can he get to a point where the shooting is so deadly that he can be an on-ball guy? Is he going to struggle with NBA level athletes and defenders? And I think all of that so far has proven to be true. He's also obviously a rookie on a team that just traded for Trey Young. I think Bub Carrington's not in the equation anymore. I think you can't really factor him in when you're talking about Trey Johnson.
I think besides Cooper Flagg, he has by far the worst situation of any of the guys we've drafted or we've talked about in this situation. Now, like, look, sometimes that in itself is a concern. Like, I don't want to poo-poo that. Like, sometimes you go to a bad team and they break you and you never recover, you know? I would say I would be more alarmed if he was having sort of a like Bub Carrington season, and he hasn't really, you know what I'm saying? I think what you were just saying, where it's like, he's been pretty much what I expected. And I think that I think a guy like Trey Johnson was always going to have like, I don't even know if I would call it like a shaky rookie season. It's just kind of a normal rookie season for a guy of his profile. And I think these guys really pop in like year 3, you know, like is kind of what I think. So I'm still buying the dip. If anyone would like to sell me their Trey Johnson stock, go ahead. And you can do that. You can take Colin Murray Boyles now if you want to. But
how'd you know? No, but before I continue with Colin Murray Boyles,
yes.
The thing that I still will always just worry about with Trey is like, can we get to a passable level of defense? Because if we're a passable level of defense and he buys into a role where he's like a movement shooter that plays off stars, then you're talking about like a real complementary player. Because I'm still a little bit shaky on what his ceiling could be, to be completely honest with you, as like an on-ball guy. And I think that's just makes it so that you have to be good on defense, basically. And I need to see him continue to get better on that end. I do feel bad for Bub because Bub has been just like we loved him in the draft, and he's just not really turned out to be anywhere near what we thought he could be in the NBA. But the one thing that I've looked at this year is like Trey's numbers when Bub sits, and like the Wizards are not, they're bad, but they're not a disaster in the same way. And I think that while it's going to be hard to figure out a way to play Trey Young and Trey Johnson together. I do think that the offense is just going to be incredible when those two get some chemistry playing together. And they might just be able to win games like 140 to 135 or something along those lines. So far, it has not turned out to be that way, but they've really not gotten a ton of chance to play together. So far, they've only played like 100 minutes together in the NBA. But I dropped Trey a little bit just because I do worry about the defense, and I do worry about kind of, you know, his on ball long term. When he isn't scoring, there's just nothing else that he's really bringing to the table right now. And you need to really hit like a high level. And that was always my concern with him, even though I thought he could be one of the 5 best shooters in the NBA, and that could swing his career into a positive, direction.
I want to be clear. I'm making my own bored. Like this is obviously you don't take Trey. You probably take Trey in like 3 or 4 picks if you're otherwise. I just believe in him. So that's the
you might be surprised to learn this.
Yeah.
I had Ace Bailey over Trey.
I think that's fine. He's bigger, like it's
That's
more of a, you know what I'm saying? Like he's
more
bigger,
defensive potential.
I don't think that's crazy.
Additive skills, like he gets steals, blocks, can do.
Yeah.
He hasn't really shown it all that much in the NBA so far because that team just kind of needs him on the perimeter, which is not really making the most of his defensive skill set, I don't think. But I think that he can get to a point where you could put him closer to the basket and he can be, a long-armed rim protector, help guy. And then the last thing I was going to say is that I just think that he has other skills when the shot isn't going in, that like he's more, he might not be the shooter that Trey is, but he's pretty much going to be positive at a number of other things long-term as he grows into his body and just like offensive rebounding in general, he gets like 2 a game at this point.
Generally bigger, like you said, blocks and steals. Honestly, my entire Trey thing is I've heard some things about his mentality and I'm just betting on the dog. You know what I'm saying? I'm honestly with Trey, I'm just betting on that.
Everything we've heard about this whole draft class has kind of just been filled with these guys where it's just like, and now look, maybe some of it is us falling for propaganda, but
definitely.
But it's not like you rare. And if you do hear about like, man, this guy is not the best work ethic, like it is amplified at the level of, state propaganda basically, because teams want a reason to basically justify for why guys fall in the draft. Whenever you hear about like Kalaware, for example, 2 years ago, right?
Yes,
where it was like, it's like, and some of that stuff proves to be true in the NBA where you might be like, yeah, look, all the talent and the size and all that stuff's there. But I've only heard good things about Trey. I've only heard good things about Ace. I've only heard good things about Colin Murray-Boyles, who I'm going to take next. But I do think that Colin Murray-Boyles long-term versus Ace is at least a debate here. Like, I think that if I was picking a spot ahead, I would be picking between those two guys still. And I think that Colin Murray-Boyles is very obviously going to have a need to have a specific kind of team around him. Because obviously he's not going to play center full time. Like you're probably going to play him at the 4. Scotty Barnes and him are going to give them an incredible defense. Can they get in enough offense and also potentially find a spacing big? Like now, the guy that I've been looking at for them, and I know it wouldn't help their rebounding, but they have rebounding all over the court at other positions. The guy that I really would be interested in for them is if the Bucks blow it up after the season, them using RJ Barrett's expiring contract with like a pick or something to go get Miles Turner to pair with Colin Murray-Boyles and Scotty Barnes. Because that opens up the paint for both of those guys and also adds a level of, potential like I think that defense could be incredible together, even though I think that the thing is that it's just going to be really hard to get enough spacing and play a traditional 5 around Colin Murray-Boyles and Scotty Barnes. But the flashes that Murray-Boyles showed defensively in college, I mean, he was pretty consistent defensively in college. But the flashes that he's shown in the NBA, switching out onto the perimeter, combined with his help defense instincts, potential to be a long-term rim protector and paint protector. Like, I do think that there is an all defense level guy in him still. And the early stuff with the scoring and shooting, which we all worried about coming in, is certainly going to continue to be the thing that determines whether he can become a high level starter in the NBA or if he's just like a guy you have to build around his weaknesses on offense. But like, we don't have enough of a sample with the shooting stuff to really say anything because he doesn't take threes. Like, he's taken 48 threes and he's made 17. That's better than I expected, but it's also only 48 attempts. He's made 35% of his threes, but you just can't take anything from that so far in his career. He's still not a good free throw shooter. I do think that for a guy of his size, he might struggle with some interior scoring stuff, but the passing, playmaking, defense combo with him, if you can figure out a way to make him a starter level player, which I do think in time they will be able to figure out, he's going to be the every year when we're doing, you know who's underrated?
Yeah.
He's this guy. You said Alex Caruso, which I understood what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
I think in that like potential for him long term is like someone who is beloved by impact metrics guys, calculator rats.
Yes.
Coaches will be like,
Yes.
oh, talking him up. Oh man, what a great defender he is. Like, he's so versatile, blah, blah, blah. That he is the guy that I think
4 years ago, Derek White.
I was going to say Derek White was going to be my example. Yeah. Like just another guy that has a really unique skill set that, there are certain things that you might have to work around with him, but if you can figure out a way to get him to 30 minutes a game, your team's probably going to be really good. And that is why I slightly lean towards him over Ace, but Ace has made it he's been, since his rough start in the NBA, he's been pretty good for the last, and even before Mickey Mouse March, he's been pretty good for 2 to 2.5 months. And he's still one of the youngest players in this draft and one of the youngest players in the league in general. Whereas Murray Boyles was young for a sophomore coming out, but he's still 20, 21 years old. So those were the players that I was debating between.
Well, I think what we're talking about is what I would call the good team, bad team divide. With like Ace Bailey and Trey being unfortunately on the bad team side of the things, where it's like these are guys that bad teams are going to want to target because you're trying to get a bigger piece in place. Whereas Colin Murray Boyles, and I think like maybe VJ has a little bit of this, Con has a lot of this, where you have somebody, and it's ironically Dylan Harper, what we were talking about with Dylan Harper is the inversion of this, where you have a player who is able to be grafted onto another player's team. You know what I'm saying? And Colin Murray Boyles is, I think, the first guy we've picked who is very solidly that. All these other guys have a little bit. Con probably is the next closest, but like he's very much, Colin Murray, Colin Murray Boyles is never making an all-star team. Like maybe I'll live to regret that, but I feel pretty confident saying he'll never make an all-star team. Every other guy we've picked, and Ace Bailey, I think could conceivably make like if there's like an injury year, you know what I'm saying? And these
the perfect example I like to use of this though is like, for example, Ace's teammate Lauri Markkanen has made an all-star game.
Yes,
there's not a team in the NBA, a good team in the NBA that would take Lauri Markkanen over Aaron Gordon when he was not making all-star teams.
Exactly.
That's kind of the thing that I think that you're trying to get at here, which is that like they might make an all-star team or they might have that because they have the shine and the scoring and whatever. But it's if you're trying to build a championship level team, someone like Colin Murray Boyles might long term be able to fit that mold of player a little bit more.
And I think sometimes, because I think calculator rats will say this, will be like, well, obviously, okay, well then what you're describing is if the point is to have a good basketball team, shouldn't Colin Murray Boyles be higher? You know what I'm saying? And it's a little bit of the argument of like, well, why don't they just make the whole plane out of the black box?
Sure.
Like it's not,
you have
like,
to have those other guys still.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the issue is you have to have your guys in place. You know what I'm saying? Now you can try to kind of reverse engineer that. And who kind of did do that is the New York Knicks, which is very funny. Where they did kind of build the sheet and out of the black box, and then you have a guy grow into that role with like Jalen Brunson.
So I know it was two different teams, but I had this thought the other day. Yeah, your Celtics kind of did that too a little bit. They drafted Marcus Smart first.
Yes.
And now obviously he wasn't a part of the championship team, but he was part of a lot of good teams. Yeah. And they drafted him before, like they could have taken Julius Randle there, who in theory has more number one upside and obviously became a number one option on a team in the NBA. He also limited that team ceiling. What's that?
He didn't. No, he didn't.
He didn't limit the Knicks ceiling when he was the number one option.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Marcus Smart.
Oh, no. What I'm saying is that,
and I was about to fight you.
I'm not saying that you guys drafted Marcus Smart not thinking that he had star upside.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that like I've thought about this a lot for the upcoming draft. Where like
we also still had Rondo on the team when we drafted him, which people forget. Yeah,
right. And
Rondo was in his prime. He was coming off an injury, but he was still young. Like,
but I think about this all the time, where I'm like, would you rather? Now, obviously, like a situation like the Mavericks, they don't have the option to draft like if they think Burries, for example, is just going to be like a really good like third or fourth guy on their team. Yeah. They don't have their pick next year. So it doesn't necessarily benefit them to draft someone like him and instead of taking a swing on someone you might view as someone who can be a second option to Flag or a complementary number 1-2 punch with Flag because they don't have their pick next year. That's a very unique situation. Like they might be, if they had their pick for the next 3 years, you might be like, fuck, we like Burries more as like maybe a potential like Derek White type. And then we can get, we're going to suck again next year because the West is going to be the West and we'll probably end up back in the lottery. And then we can, take another swing next year. I've been thinking a lot about that in general. And I want to talk about that more when we get to this year's draft. But I'm assuming you're taking Ace next then?
Yeah.
Just to summarize, we have Con 1, Flag 2, Harper 3, VJ 4, Cedric Coward 5, Trey Johnson 6, Colin Murray Boyle 7, Ace Bailey 8, and now we're at assuming you take Ace, unless you're taking someone else.
No, I think you kind of have to take Ace. I'm not even like a huge Ace fan. But like again, I think you summarized it pretty well. You know what I'm saying? Like he's still a high upside guy. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that you've seen kind of what happened. Now, obviously, Michael Porter Jr. was a different caliber of prospect who just kind of got pigeonholed a little bit because he did end up on a good team and then kind of ended up in this ancillary role where everyone kind of pigeonholed him. And then when his back was fine and he got to the Nets, it's like, no, well, I'm still like I was kind of supposed to be a number 1 overall talent in my draft class. You know what I'm saying? And I think that people forget about that when they're talking about Michael Porter Jr. and kind of conflating Ace with him. Like, I don't think Ace is ever going to have even the level of passing that Michael Porter Jr. showed this year, like necessarily, but
he's a positive assist to turnover ratio, which I think is progress for him.
Yes. Positive assist to turnover ratio guy. He's just so big and long, man. You know what I'm saying? It's so hard for those guys to be bad. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very hard for me to not see even his worst case scenarios, him being like worse than Harrison Barnes, for example, and that Harrison Barnes is still in the NBA and is still a contributing member of a good NBA. Say what you will. Like he is a contributing member to the second best team in the NBA right now. Like, so it is like it's funny because like we always think about Ace as being like a high ceiling guy. I think it's kind of the opposite. He's actually kind of a high floor guy.
I said this in the draft process. I said this the whole time where I'm like, I think everyone has him wrong. I actually think he's a fairly like a decently safe pick towards the end of the draft process after I didn't really like him at first, where I was like, these big wings, and we're going to have the same. Now, I don't think he's even as good as Ace, to be clear, but we're going to have the same conversations with Nate Amen in this upcoming draft, where it's just like, I'm sorry,
but I'll talk myself into.
But you're tall and you can shoot, and the league is just doesn't have these guys.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not, that's just kind of the reality of what the league is nowadays. And the thing with Ace, I Harrison Barnes, Andrew Wiggins was another one.
Yeah.
Where it's like vaguely athletic, has a bit of a bag, can shoot. Now, similar to Andrew Wiggins and Harrison Barnes, a decent shooter, probably weirdly better, like Wiggins, weirdly better off the dribble potentially than someone who's just like a pure spot up guy. Although they have been running actions for him and he's become a pretty good like catch and shoot guy. His numbers aren't elite as a shooter. Like right now he's shooting 34.9% from 3, 74% from the line, although that's gone up. He was in the 60s at one point. And he's another guy. Like the thing with him, VJ, and then Harper for his mold of player doesn't get to the line as much as you would think. That was the one part of this draft when I remember looking through being like, none of these guys really get to the line, which is weird. That's usually something that is like tied to, I think Flag does, but I don't think that anyone else really does get to the line nearly as much as you would think, but a lot of them are just playing lesser roles on their teams, and maybe that's something that comes in time. But Ace doesn't drive to the basket a ton. He's not he is purely a play finisher. He got drafted to a great team for himself. And like I said, the things that have been most encouraging for him, because he's a decent to good shooter, not an elite one. Maybe he gets better with that in time. The things that have been good with him, the offensive rebounding has been the thing that has probably been the best kind of additive role player thing I think that he can bring to a team. He averages 2.1 per 36 minutes right now. And he has 1.2 steals, 0.7 blocks, like per 36. Like there are other elements to his game, and the passing, they don't put him in positions to make like reads and like like have the opportunity to make like high level passes or anything like that. And that's something that he's probably going to need to get better at, just because this team really does not have the level of passing. But what they do have is a ton of guys who can shoot, a ton of guys who can move. And Ace has at least made some decent passes this year when I've watched them in a way that I didn't really anticipate him doing, as they've simplified his role a little bit on this Jazz team. And I do think that I had him right at this range on my board. And I honestly, I'm looking at our redraft right now, and I'm not as high on Trey, but outside of Cedric Coward, pretty much all of these guys were the guys that I had. It really, the guy that I messed up on the most so far is Malawatch, which same. I think both of us did. I think I said
I think I was even higher on him than you were. I had him at 2 at one point in the process.
I had him at, we might have both had him at 5 by the time the draft came around. I've made a pact to myself, and this is not to say that Kamal Malawatch can't be an NBA player or like a decent player. But what I have decided is that I am deleting the Discord 2 weeks before the draft this year, because every year we talk about prospects so much in there that I always get unreasonably high on a player that I shouldn't have. And I'm going to lock my board 2 weeks before, and I'm not going into the Discord. I'm not blaming it on them. I'm the reason that I did this. I did this with Devin Carter 2 years ago too, and it just made no fucking sense. So we're keeping the boards locked in 2 weeks in advance.
I did have Malawatch 5.
We both did. I had Malawatch at 9. It was the opposite of the Trey Johnson thing, where I convinced you to bring Trey higher and then I dropped him.
Yeah.
I had Malawatch 5. I had Malawatch at 10 when I first did my board.
Yeah. I do not think Trey Johnson at 2 was solid play. I still love him, unfortunately. I had VJ 3. I had Harper 4.
Con 6?
Con 6, yeah. And then Ace 7. Very I have a very funny one at 8, which I haven't given up on.
Who's that?
Carter Bryant.
Let's go.
He's coming around, man.
He's coming around, baby.
He's Will is going to be so owned in 5 years when he's the 10th best player in this draft.
No, Will loved Carter Bryant, and then he got mad that everyone. No. I want to give Will credit here. Okay. Will loved Carter Bryant when no one knew about him. He was, during the college basketball season, he was like, I think this guy's being underrated. He's projected to go in the 2nd round right now. I would take him in the top 20.
So
I would take him in the lottery.
Shit because he
no.
me shit.
No, what happened was then everyone was like, oh, Carter Bryant's one of the 10 best players in this draft. And he was like, wait, no, we've gone too far now. He was my guy. And now I want to hate on him because I was ahead of the curve and blah, blah, blah. I still think that maybe we'll get to Carter Bryant at some point in this. So I don't want to spoil that section if we do end up talking about him. So I'm going to leave the guy that I really want to take is someone that I probably should take here, but I'm going to use my opportunity here there are a few guys I'm considering. Okay. And I'm going to leave.
This is the other part where this is the other inflection point where now you kind of just start. Because these are a lot of guys we still don't really have a ton of information on, except for unless you want to take Jagar Domen, which I will not be taking here. So
I knew you wouldn't. So yeah. I'm going to take Jagar Domen. I'm going to sign the apology for him a little bit, because I laughed at him on draft night.
Yep.
I was not high on him. I had him in my 20s in the cycle. I was like, I am not drafting a point guard who has a shaky handle and cannot shoot. He at least solved the shooting thing, seemingly. Like, he makes some tough threes, dude. These are not like wide open spot ups that he's taking. No. That's the other thing that I've been the most impressed with going back to the VJ thing. VJ's percentages have dipped since his like really hot start as a shooter, but he's not taking like wide open corner threes in the same way that like Carter Bryant is. Like, VJ and Jagar even more so, I would say, is taking tough pull up threes, and he goes through stretches where he is lights out from downtown, and he has plus size, and the handle's still shaky, and he needs to put on. He really needs to get strong. because that will potentially open up a lot for him. But I think he can have a role defensively. I don't think he'll ever get to a point where he's a great defender, but I think he can have a role defensively because of his size. And I think that he has the ability to build out his game from his passing, playmaking, and three-point shooting. And the Nets kind of, they probably viewed this as more of an upside swing, but I think that I underestimated if the shooting comes around, which I did not expect it to come around. And so far it has, that he had more of a safe floor, kind of what we just had the conversation with Ace, where it was like, now you have a guy who has plus additive size at the point guard position that, he doesn't do all of the things that you want your point guard to do, but he's a good processor. He can shoot from downtown. And if he gets stronger and improves as a driver, as he adds strength, that 2-point percentage and volume has to go way up for me to feel good about his long-term upside. But he's been way, way better than I ever expected. And also, if you want to talk about Ace, if you want to talk about Flag, if you want to talk about one of the youngest players in the NBA, he's still extremely young and has a long track to potentially get better over the course of his career. So I'm signing the apology for him. I thought this guy wasn't an NBA player, and he very clearly is.
Yeah,
and I think
he's definitely an NBA player. Yeah, for sure.
I'll just complete transparency. I knew you weren't going to take him, so I wanted to take him, and I had Hugo on my board over him. So I had Hugo Gonzalez one spot ahead of him, but I do think that Igor is he's a tantalizing long-term player in a way that I never anticipated when we laughed at him on draft night. And this is around the range that he went. So I think it's a totally justified pick, at least so far.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. I think you might be higher on Ugo than I am, which is very interesting.
I didn't know anything about Hugo before the draft. I didn't really scout. The only foreign guy that I watched was Noah Essenfake, who I was like, oh, this guy is at first I was like, oh, this is an interesting prospect. And then I watched 2 of his games and I was like, I don't notice him when he's out on the court unless he has the ball. And even then it's underwhelming. So I didn't really try to watch the foreign guys, and Hugo didn't play a lot for Real Madrid. So it was kind of hard to nail down who he was as a prospect. But I do think the combination of his defense, the rebounding, and then kind of just becoming, once again, another guy that's just going to be an impact metric darling, creates extra possessions, is a really stout on-ball defender, still very young, another guy that's super young. He just turned 20, and got drafted to a team where he's going to have a perfect role for himself for his rookie contract, at least.
Yeah, no, I love Ugo owned me because I was having a giant tantrum about who the Celtics draft, because I really thought the Celtics needed a big, and it turns out Luka Garza was fine, I guess. So I guess I'm owned because Keita turned into a different kind of guy, and Luka Garza just ended up being a rotation player, I guess. But I would say this about Ugo. I do think Celtics fans are still a little bit over their skis about this guy. Obviously all the indicators are there, the plus minus. He's basically doing this all with motor. I'm going to be completely,
for sure.
This is every time I watch Hugo, it's okay, he just cares more than everybody else. And he is very athletic. He can shoot, which is another very important thing that does kind of change his ceiling. I also do not think that there is a lot. I think, for example, I'm not a Jagar Domen fan, but he has more potential as a even running a second unit. I think it would be some pretty staggering development if Ugo is ever running a second unit, for the Boston. You know what I'm saying? He is always going to be a third wing role player type of guy. You know what I'm saying? So that would be my only thing there. I think I'm going to take Jace Richardson ahead of him.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
You had more guys ahead of Jace than this?
I don't really know what to do with Jace because he doesn't play. And like there have been moments this year where I've watched the Magic and I'm like, he belongs. And like I had Jace towards the end of my lottery, and I certainly think where the Magic took him was great value. And where the Celtics took Hugo was great value too.
Yeah.
But I just don't really know what to make of like, and as we're going into the next draft, I'm still trying to figure this out with fears and with these smaller guards that are coming into the next class. Like, what is the cutoff? Like, who is the outlier? And is Jace an outlier in terms of smaller guards? And I'm just not sure yet. But he's a good basketball player at a minimum.
He's too good at everything to be like, I think we're at the point in the draft now where I'm just like looking for guys who can like play in playoff series. And I hear what you're saying about like his size would probably definitely be like the thing that you would like point to in one of these things. But I just think of all of the guys left on the board at this point, I just think we've seen guys like him time and time again be really, really useful in a playoff context. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys define themselves over and over and over again. Really, like he's pretty, yeah, I know he's smaller, but he's pretty strong. He's got so much skill. He's so good at pretty much everything except being big. You know, like these guys figure out a way to win. I had him pretty high on my board, a lot higher than most people. Where did I have him? I dropped him a little. I went a little coward mode, but I did have him 12 by the time the draft came around. I'm
going to double check just to make sure that I'm not lying to people and saying that I had, I dropped Jace to 17 by the time the draft came around. I'm just worried about the small guard thing, but I do.
That's a fair critique to have to be.
But Jace is good. Like there's no doubt that he is a good. And like I said, like I remember there were games earlier in the season where I would watch it. I was like, anytime Tyus Jones got benched for him or he got injured or whatever, when he wasn't around, and obviously Javon Carter has come in and been everything they wanted Tyus Jones to be. It's really a fucking kind of a bad thing for Tyus Jones's PR that we have back-to-back years where old ass Corey Joseph and Javon Carter, who was not in the Bulls rotation for 2 years, come in and immediately look better than Tyus Jones and look like competent NBA players. Jace was more effective in his minutes than Tyus whenever I watch them. Like he made open shots. He makes the right plays on offense. The only thing that's holding him back is the physical limitations.
Yeah. And I think like, for example, if you want to like, cause it sounds like you're going to take Ugo next. Like, you know, Ugo,
I'll just take Ugo.
Yeah. Ugo's definitely got way more upside. And I think like, for example, if there's a year in here where Ugo comes back and it like has a bag, you know what I'm saying? Like obviously he leaps way far ahead of, you know, Jace, but I'm just a little concerned about that from like a development arc. You know what I'm saying? Like, then again, you know, maybe I'm doing the reverse jinx. Sam Sheehan to Joe Mazzulla, what are you going to do? Stab me with outlier development on a wing? You know, like it's probably a bad thing to bet against the Celtics getting outlier development out of one of their guys, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, Hugo has already instantly translated, and he is a bench player in a really good team, but he has instantly translated to being a solid NBA player already. And then all of the other guys that you guys have drafted did not look like that until year 2, 3, 4. So other than obviously the high picks,
I would say, to be fair, right now, literally the only guy on the, well, no, we just signed Max Shulga, who hasn't like played, but like the only guy with a real NBA contract on this team that like is bad is Vucevic. Everybody else looks good. I'm not kidding. Like everybody, Ron Harper Jr. I am a Ron Harper Jr. truther now, dude. This is like some crazy shit. Like nobody is bad, like on the team. Baylor Shireman, who looked like a dog for a year and a half, like and a derogatory dog, like now is just all of a sudden Sam Hauser 2.0. Like what? I don't know what the fuck Joe Mazzulla is doing. This is like genuinely Spo shit from Joe Mazzulla. Like this is, I know Will likes to be like, oh, Celtics fans have like the horseshoe up there. This is like actually evil. like I'm saying as a Celtics fan. Like,
so I don't want to say anything because I feel like I'm just going to jinx it here.
yeah.
Maybe you're right about Ron Harper Jr. He's also 26. Like he turns 26 and we're talking about Hugo Gonzalez, who literally just turned 20.
Yeah,
so
he's
that's
like the third youngest player in the NBA or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the difference that when I'm talking about making bets on guys long term and them getting better, Hugo's already good. If you're this good as a rookie, even if you're a role player, you're probably going to be good for a decade. Like that's just generally 100%. How this thing works. Yeah. So I'll take so just to recap our top 10 here real quick before we move on to another range. By the way, if we had done this 2 months ago, I probably would have already taken Derek Queen.
Same.
It's been a little alarming recently. Since the scouting report's been out on him. Once again, rookie wall stuff. Factor all that stuff in there. He was older for a one and done is another factor, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But having talked to a few Pelicans people about it, it's not quite in the bag in a way that I thought that it was. And I probably would have taken him. I probably would have taken him 6th, maybe 7th, if we did this podcast 2 months ago. But when you zoom out, the picture isn't quite as pretty as it was earlier in the season. So we did Con 1, Flag 2, Harper 3, VJ 4, Cedric Coward 5, Trey Johnson 6, Colin Murray Boyles 7, Ace 8, Jace Richardson 9, and Hugo 10. I think did I skip Igor? I skipped Igor.
No, yeah, Jagar you had.
It's Jagar. Jagar Domen. Domen.
You had him. You
9.
took him at 9. I took
Jace 10.
Jace, and then
Hugo 11.
Ugo. And I will take
Ugo. There's no
Ugo.
H.
There's no H. Yeah.
Ugo. Okay. All right.
Ugo Gonzalez. Yeah.
Ugo. So I'll go Ugo 11. So who are you going to take at 12?
Well, and you brought him up. Derek Queen was my next pick. So I think at this point you take Derek Queen. But like it is alarming. It was a little bit alarming that he like left the floor and the Pelicans immediately went on a run when we were there at that game. Like, it
happens a lot. Now, rookie, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is something you want to factor in for all of these guys.
Yeah.
But he looked like he had that game where he had like 8 assists in the first quarter or something crazy like 3 months ago. And I was like, oh, man, like he's potentially breaking the rookie record for assists for a big. Like this is long term. I'm making a bet on a guy like this. The ancillary defense stuff and the lack of shooting development so far. Like if those things aren't there, it's just the floor can fall out. Like that's just kind of the reality. And we've talked about how good you have to be in order to be an on-ball guy that you run offense through in 2026. It's always been the case, but it feels like the bar's even higher now than it used to be. Yeah. And for him to reach even like, I've talked to Pelicans fans about this. I was going to say the life of, the Life of Pablo cover by Kanye, where he has the which one.
Yeah.
And on one side, this is how I felt about him before the draft, which is why I put him in my boomer bust tier in this range. Which was the boom being like Alperen Şengün or maybe like Sabonis, and the bust being like Jahlil Okafor, where it's like, man, the defense stuff and the lack of shooting from the outside. And now he does have the passing and playmaking, but how good does he have to be at all of the other stuff in order to make that stuff really matter and count? And I do think there's a chance that we could be sitting here and he just hit the rookie wall. And a year from now, we're like, he's rising back up the board.
Yeah.
But there's at least a slight chance that this thing kind of the bottom kind of falls out on this thing. And we're talking about a player that is not what we thought he could have been after his like hot start.
Here's what I'll say about him. He, whether it's, and this is both a saving grace and a damning. I think he's the most outlier player of like anyone on the board. You know what I'm saying? Where there's not really a comp
for
him. You know what I'm saying? Like in the NBA, and it's like So is there not a comp because these guys are bad, or or
Rookie
is there,
player.
yeah, or is he not a comp because he's just something we've like never seen before? You know what I'm saying? And we kind of did this with Edie last year. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, and like I still think that there is, like again, just like you said, if we did this months ago, I probably would have had him much higher on the board. Right now, doesn't look as good. I'm very concerned about like, we talked about good team players, bad team players. He's a bad team player. You know what I'm saying? Like this is we're talking about a centerpiece for a bad team. And and the other thing is like, even if my concern is that even if he hits his high end outcomes, how does he make the transition into good team player?
Well,
It's very hard to see that,
We've seen this with Şengün, who is like the best version of this player.
Yes.
Where now that they've become good, like his stats have suffered a little bit. He has games where you're like, what is he doing? And he has been able to be on the court for them winning in the last 2 years, but it's not looking quite as promising as it was when he was on his rookie contract and all of that. So the long and short of it is that he's still a very talented player, just a flawed and unique one. And it's kind of hard to put your finger on and like project his long-term outcome. Him and Fears have kind of reversed in this regard.
Yeah.
Where it's like Fears was the guy that like, he obviously had the flashes very early, and I always knew Fears was going to be terrible as a rookie. So I couldn't really react to what he was doing early. But it's always like one of those things where because like I've seen this with VJ where like the highs are so high with him and then the lows are like really low, and he always has the gap feller stuff I talked about to fall back on, where it's like if VJ isn't scoring, like he'll go and get a bunch of rebounds one game, or he'll go and bust his ass on defense, and like he can kind of make up for some of the things that you really struggle with during your rookie season. Whereas these guys were basically just star bets. There's no world in which Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen are role players. Like they are very much the definition of boom or bust players. And Fears is kind of self-corrected a little bit down the stretch of this last few weeks as they put him in that backup point guard position as DeJounte Murray came back in. Some of the like misses with him, like as a shooter and as a finisher around the basket are pretty ugly still. But he's at least shown enough that I do think he's an NBA player. I'm just worried that once again with both him and Queen, that the bottom can fall out on either of these guys. And the star traits that they have don't really matter if they're so bad at other things. That it's just like, you have to have both. Like you have to have the combination of like, some of the ancillary skills in addition to the star stuff, or you have to be the best at the star stuff. And I don't know what pathway really either of them have for that long term, even though they're clearly probably going to be NBA players.
It's funny you brought up Fears because he was the other one I was looking at in this spot.
Well, then I'll give you him because I'll just go in another direction.
Okay.
Because this is my last pick because we're just going to do the lottery.
Okay.
So I just wanted to kind of lay this out there and talk about a few different players that I could consider here.
Okay.
Here's some players I considered here.
Okay.
You know what? I'm not sure who I want to take still. So I'll just say the players I'm not going to take.
Okay.
Someone who's shown some stuff recently, but still has a long way to go, is a little bit older. Rasheer Fleming's been really impressive defensively for the Suns recently. Ooh. He was someone we both liked in the draft.
Yeah.
I think we both had him. I was going to say, I think we both had him in our top 20.
Yeah.
I
lowered him. I was really high on him, and you kind of talked me out of it. And I had him. Yeah. I got him down to 20.
I have him 20 in my redraft board too. So that I feel exactly the way that I felt about him pre-draft. Which is that I do think that defensively he can definitely be I don't know if he can get to starter level, but he can be a good defensive player on a good team.
He's a good team player by comparison. You know what I'm saying? If Derek Queen's a bad team player, you know what I'm saying? This is a good team player. This is a guy that good teams need, you know?
I'm very mad that the Sixers didn't trade up to try to go get him like the Suns were aggressive and they traded every second round pick they have. I would have loved to see, he's a local kid. I would have loved to see that. I would have felt even better about, the younger players on this team if they were able to go do that. He's been playing well, but the offense is still very far away from him being like a rotation player that you can rely on in the NBA. But offensive rebounding and defense will get you on the court in 2026 as a role player, and he does both. Will Richard is another older player that I considered. He's cooled off considerably after his hot start, but clearly an NBA player. Kasparis Yakachones is someone that I considered here. All of his critics and his fans were a little bit right about him. He's become a way better shooter so far in the NBA that I think we had anticipated. It's still very limited sample of minutes and shots and stuff like that, but he definitely can shoot. I don't think that he can score inside, and that was the thing that ultimately made me drop him during the process. But high field player who can shoot, he's probably going to be a rotation guard. And Miami always just gets away with this. He's one of the younger players in the NBA. They always figure out roles for these guys, even if he's not the on-ball guy that we thought that he could potentially be. Giannis Koden-Niedenhauser, already, as a Penn State alum, he's already the best player I think we've ever had in the NBA. Giannis Koden-Niedenhauser, during his rookie season, has become the GOAT Penn State player in the NBA.
Let's go, dude.
Our other guys that we have, it's not a long list. Calvin Booth, who, by the way, I don't know if you missed this news, he just became the GM for Penn State basketball.
Let's go, dude. Hold on. We've talked about Calvin Booth might be innocent, by the way.
Upgrade from going from the Denver Nuggets and all the pressure to going to Penn State basketball, where there is no one gives a fuck about the program. I used to go to games, even when they were decent, I would go to games and there was like 300 people at the games by the way, in Bryce Jordan Center at the time. They would play all of their games there. They still do, but it's an arena. So you can put thousands we had major headlining acts come through there. When we did sell out games, it was a fucking movie. It was great, but it was very like, I was not there for we've never had prime basketball years at Penn State, but I was not there for the best years. And we made the tournament 1 year when I was there. And we've only made it back once since. So the bar is very low.
My college, we had pull-out bleachers like you would in a high school.
Let's go.
So,
Let's go.
Our Division One.
We originally had that at Rec Hall, which is where they used to play, but then they moved into the Bryce Jordan Center. But occasionally they still play games at Rec Hall at Penn State, and it's way better because when people don't go to your games, you want a smaller arena. You don't want a bigger. When we would show up and there was like 500 people there in a 15,000 person arena, it felt dead the whole game.
Yeah,
because it's just like no one fucking shows up, and then the energy is like super low. I mean, if it were up to me, they would play all of their games at Rec Hall because you could at least fill up half of Rec Hall on any given night.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say again, maybe you get hired by Calvin Booth.
There you go, Calvin. If you're listening, make Rec Hall great again. I don't even know if they still do that. Like, I don't even know if Rec Hall is still there. Let's see. I'm gonna look up the capacity at Rec Hall because they do the wrestling. Okay, all right. I was way off because I never went to a game at Rec Hall. I never went to Rec Hall other than using the gym there. They could fit 6,000 people in there, so it's still pretty big relative to most when we're talking about like high school bleachers type shit. I'm assuming that it's because they didn't start playing games again at Rec Hall until after I left. So
we had if we never had games big enough, but if we were going to, we would have them at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in downtown Providence, where PC plays their games. Oh. So Providence College, Marshawn Brooks was hooping at the Dunk, baby.
Where did he go to college?
Providence. PC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was that. They were down the hill. You know what I'm saying? Those were the college. You had the four colleges of Providence. You had where I went to school. You had RISD. You had
Epstein University.
Yeah, I went to Epstein University. And you had Johnson and Wales and PC. And it
Johnson
was
and Wales culinary school, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
JWU.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about that. That was the
Wasn't
shorthand
that a
for
party
like
school.
kind of. No, it was like that was the stigma. The thing was, the joke was that you would go to Lupo's Heartbreak Hotel, which was a venue for like, which was like one of the big venues there in Providence, and you would go there to get with like emo alt girls, and that
Let's
was
go.
like the shorthand was like JWU girls, where it was the emo alt scene.
What a time!
Yeah, it was great. That was different, man. It was different in 2008. Let me tell you.
I was gonna say, I remember seeing videos from like their parties and stuff, and I was like, why is Johnson and Wales why do they have like bangers?
Yeah, I was gonna say they did. No, it was Fishco was the club Fishco, where you could hand, if you were a underage girl, you'd just hand the bouncer a credit card and you pretend to look at it and wave you in. They didn't stay open very long.
Epstein University. Anyway.
Yes. That was actually off our campus, though. That was down the hill. That was more of a Providence college. They had PC night. They had all the other. Shout out to Providence, man.
I was gonna say the forgotten northeast city of Providence. I feel like
it's awesome. I love Providence. It's
I've never
really
been.
Shitty, but in a charming way.
I was gonna say I've never been, and I don't go to New England all that often, but I never hear anyone talk about Providence unless it's college basketball.
Yeah. I'm just going to say this. Well, you have in a way, because I've always said the first time I went to Philly, I was like, Philly is like a perfect mix of Providence and New York City. Like
that's actually very funny.
Yes. So it's very similar. Like it's got.
You're the first person to go to Philly and be like, this is Providence code.
This is Providence. getting real Providence vibes from this Philadelphia. Anyone heard of this small town, Philadelphia?
Yeah. So shout out to Yannick Coden-Edenhauser,
yes,
from Penn State, who I watched some Penn State games. I didn't watch a lot last year, but I watched some, and I was like, this guy's an NBA player. Like when it was coming out during the combine, I remember Parm famously called him the Wilt Chamberlain of the combine. And he has been impressive he is very obviously in his specific role, which is going to be I talked to Clayton, who is a Clippers fan, and he said like a young diet DeAndre Jordan basically type, where he's just gonna, catch lobs and protect the basket. But like he definitely has potential to be like Bill loves him. He watched him play live twice, and he's like, this is my weakness. If I see a guy play well live twice, I'm going to overrate him. But he's definitely a guy. And I like I said, it's like he's competing with Calvin Booth and Jalen Pickett for best Penn State basketball player. The bar is very, very low for him. So I'm happy to see that he's showing out so far in the NBA, even though he did have an injury that ended his rookie season.
Kyle, turn the TikTok camera on. Are the Clippers one of the 10 best teams at drafting in the last 10 years?
It's so funny because I had someone comment on our video where I talked about one of the videos I posted on TikTok about how shitty the Clippers are at drafting. And this was last year. And they were like, they did draft
the MVP.
They drafted maybe the best player in the NBA, which is very funny to say about the Clippers when you consider the rest of everything else with their drafting record. And they really had a cold stretch. But I will say, Kobe Sanders is at least going to be in a rotation in the NBA. Jordan Miller is starting to look like an NBA player, and I know he's older, but like second round pick, and Giannis Coden-Edenhauser was the last. Maybe they got someone in there in the last few drafts to at least get them NBA players, because the problem with them is they would draft someone and they were instantly out of the NBA for years.
The Diamond Stone days were
what was his name? Christ Kumaji, was that them? They drafted someone, I can't remember. Daniel Otoro was immediately out of the NBA.
Kobe Brown.
And when they drafted Kobe Brown, I was like, if this guy sucks as a rookie, he's not an NBA player. He's 24. Yeah. And they did that so many times, just over and over again. But actually, funny enough, they did draft, if I remember correctly, I think they drafted Musa Diabate, and they just gave up on him.
Yeah.
And he is an NBA player for sure. I mean, he's a good one.
He's awesome, dude. I love him so much. He's so good.
But they drafted him in the second round in 2022, so they've gotten better. It's just they need to be a little bit more patient.
Maybe we save this for a segment, but the real conversation is how much of the Thunder team was drafted by or was constructed by draft picks. Wrong. It's smaller than that. Not really a drafting team.
Who?
It's like they nailed the J-Dub pick, and that's pretty much it. Like,
I think Kasem was a decent pick. AJ Mitchell is a fantastic pick.
But I'm saying, like, the
other Jalen Williams.
People think of the tanking. As
no, it wasn't the tanking. No,
this is what I'm saying. Like, they didn't really. The tanking really didn't have anything. Honestly, Chet's kind of a bad top three, not a bad top three pick, but he's like a very normal top three pick. He was not a nailed pick by any stretch of the imagination. So, like,
they did well by first off just amassing the amount of picks that they had, so they could take swings on guys, combined with the fact that they sold high on Giddey, and they then turned around and they used one of their embarrassment of riches picks to get a guy like Jared McCain, and they nailed second round picks.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
like
they've actually
Wiggins and Jalen Williams and AJ Mitchell and stuff
people
like
are
that.
always like, small market teams have to be bad to be good, and it's like, no, they were fine. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, if you want to be pedantic, oh, but they had Paul George. Okay, yes, but they also re-signed Paul George and then traded him. You know what I'm saying? This is just the thing that always drives me crazy. You don't have to tank in the NBA. I'm sorry. There are so many ways to be good in the NBA. And I just want to debunk that the Thunder had to tank at any point in time. All of their good players.
Well, also the only reason we're having this conversation is because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander became, at worst, the second best player in the NBA.
Yes. And he was drafted 13th. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is
11th.
This has always been my thing. Or 11th?
I know it's 11th because the Sixers were one pick before we took Mikal Bridges, but you'll never hear about that because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't grow up in Philadelphia. So
yeah, that's also true. I mean, I think everyone is probably fine with that if it's not Zaire Williams in the trade.
Zaire Smith. If they don't, obviously, if they just keep Bridges, but the conversation we would be having now, if they drafted Bridges, was like, can you believe we drafted Mikal Bridges one pick before the best player in the NBA? Even though Mikal Bridges would have been good for us. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Mikal Bridges Knicks situation right now.
No. What is it now? It changes every week.
It's very weird. He doesn't close for them ever anymore. Landry Shamet closes over him.
God, Mike Brown is something special right now. Is the Tibbs?
I don't know. He wanted Tibbs gone. Like, Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns seem to be like kind of out on Tibbs, and like
miss something when it's gone, man. I'm just saying. Yeah. Like, I don't think they like.
I don't think Mike Brown is, but I also don't think Mike Brown is wrong to bench him in that situation.
No, I don't either. I think that Knicks situation was. I think Thibodeau was slandered for something that was not really like. I understand he's a frustrating coach. 90% of coaches are boomers about this stuff. He was just doing boomer coach tendencies. You know what I'm saying? Sure. I don't think it was particularly unique to Thibodeau. You know,
it's not. We see it with pretty much every good coach, like up and down, whether they've won championships or not. Yeah, I mean, he's played 21 minutes last game. Someone brought this up, and I did think it was interesting. I wish I could contribute, or I could attribute who this was, but someone did bring up to me, or they just posted about it. Mikal Bridges might suffer from playing too many games.
Yeah.
Not only does his body suffer from never missing games, but also he's never out long enough that, like, you know, like when, like, for example, Paul George for the Sixers, right? Mm-hmm. Paul George is a frustrating player. But when Paul George is out for 25 games, I'm like, man, we really fucking miss Paul George. And you just said you don't know what you got till it's gone with Tibbs. It's kind of similar with Mikal Bridges, where it's like, obviously he hasn't been the best this year, but in the past, I'm sure he would benefit from missing a month of basketball so that people could be like, oh yeah, he's actually pretty good when we have to play X player a certain amount of minutes. And the funniest slander, obviously Mikal Bridges is a lot better than this player, but the funniest slander I heard for Mikal Bridges recently was from a Sixers fan, JS, in the Discord, who said that Justin Edwards and Mikal Bridges have the exact same offensive game. Which is kind of true. Like, Mikal Bridges is much better than Justin Edwards, but they do, like, Mikal Bridges doesn't even attempt layups anymore. It's very strange. Like, he is just so averse to seeking out contact that it's actually started to, like, damage him as a player, even though he's still talented. Once again, if things kind of hit the fan with the Knicks after this season, I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about a Mikal Bridges trade this offseason. Just putting a little pin in that one. The other players I considered for this pick, I did consider Jeremiah Fierce just because I do think that the flashes are good. I'm not taking him because of the small guard thing and everything we've kind of laid out with potential for the floor to fall out, but I do think that he's an NBA player. Another Knicks guy that I considered for this pick, Sam, Mo Diawara. I think he's been good. Limited sample. Like, I think he's very clearly going to be a guy that just hangs around. He's a free agent after this season, and the Knicks are going to kind of be in financial hell, which is why I think they might end up dumping Mikal Bridges for draft picks or someone for draft picks, and then signing, trying to bring back Mitch Robinson, who's also a free agent. So he might be able to get a decent payday this offseason just based on his rookie season so far. Everyone's always looking for wings who can shoot. And then the other guy that I considered, I'm not going to take him. I'm not going to take either of these guys because I think I know who you're going to take last. But I think Will Riley is going to be good. Like,
nice. Okay.
I was not really super familiar with him as a prospect to the point where I felt confident. Like, I think I had him somewhere in the 20s, but like another guy that just has potential if he can put on some weight in the NBA. He's probably not going to be good for 3 years or 4 years, but I do think that he has potential just as like a guy who can occasionally run offense. He's super long. He's got shooting touch. Like, he's definitely going to be someone I think we'll talk about on this podcast in the future. And then Kalkbrenner was the other one I considered, but I still kind of am dying on the hill that I just think that he's a good backup.
Yeah, he's a good backup.
Yeah.
It's all. I like Kalkbrenner. I had Kalkbrenner. I think I had him like 22. I had him 22 on my board, and that's probably, you'd probably come up a little bit from that. So apologies before I take my last pick.
No, I haven't made my pick.
Oh,
I just laid out all the players I could have taken. I didn't.
Oh, I thought you took Niedenhauser. Oh, okay.
No. I do think that he has potential long term.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take Maxine Reynaud.
Oh, that's who I was gonna take. Okay. All right, I gotta rethink it now.
So I know this Kings team stinks, and I know that he is gonna have another guy who's just gonna have flaws in his game. But the offensive stuff is interesting enough to me. He shoots like 60% from 2, and they're running offense through him. If he can ever extend his range out to 3, he's going to be a 10-year NBA player. Like, he is, and I do think there might be a little bit more upside. Now, he's another guy who's older. He's 22, 23. And he's someone that I wish the Sixers had taken in retrospect in the second round. And while he is not a perfect player by any means, there's at least a sliver of a pathway for him to, I think, to maybe get to flawed star status. And it's probably more of he's probably more of just like a positive offensive backup big in the long term, but bigs who have shooting potential and, are skilled offensively are always going to have a place in the league. And he's at least shown enough this year that I think that he might be able to get there. So I'm going to take him with my last pick here. And then you have the final pick in the lottery.
Yeah. A lot of the guys you just mentioned, I think were up there. We're none of us had the balls to stick with Thomas Sorber, who I think that we were all high
He just hasn't played. So I'm like, that's a fine
yeah.
pick if you want to take him here, but it's like the Topic thing last year with OKC where like, he just doesn't
it's like,
play.
And I still like him. So like, I'm going to keep it interesting. Other guys I considered here. I think, Nick Clifford has kind of been up and down, but I think he's been like at least interesting.
I disagree. I love Nick before the draft, and I'm very concerned about him.
You think he stinks?
He's old, and like
he is old. But
he's 24 already.
I just think that Kings situation is a disaster. And there were a couple, maybe I just watched the right games, but I thought he like looked like at least an NBA player. I'll admit I've only watched like 4 Kings games this year. So I had I've really liked to kind of similar guys in similar molds, but both Sion James and Drake Powell I think have been kind of interesting guys that I think could stick in the NBA. I think that another guy I just want to mention really quickly because it's funny to me. Joan Berenger has not been like a disaster. I feel like
he was so good at summer league,
yeah,
and he is another guy that's just like Conan Edenhauser. He's just an athletic freak. Like he is just he will hang around in the NBA just based on that.
I think I think he could like end up being like pretty good. Eventually. But is that everyone that I wanted to mention? Yeah. So I'll just, unfortunately, I will just be taking Carter Bryant here. I did tip my hand a little bit, but I didn't think I was going to be drafting him earlier. But I just think he'll
exact same spot he got drafted, by the way.
Yeah. I think he'll be a good 3-and-D wing. Like I really do. Like, and I think that it's interesting to watch him kind of scale up. And I do think that there is like a little bit of upside there too. Like I do think that his offensive limitations have been a little bit like exaggerated, not a lot, but like I think that he can be like he can have some like attack closeouts style offensive bag at some point. So
he has a crazy motor, really good tools. The defense is definitely there. Offensive rebounding 1.8 per 36. And he does average. He's not. I'm still a little bit lower on him relative to how people talk about him, but he is an athletic wing who's 19 or 20, was a high recruit coming out, and is a crazy athlete who is not, a disaster as a shooter. Like he can shoot from the corners, and then maybe long term he can become their 5th starter when Harrison Barnes is like completely dead. So yeah, he's definitely got a chance to be like a solid NBA player. I'm just a little bit lower on him because I don't believe in the offense quite as much, but the defense and the motor and all of the rebounding and the complementary stuff certainly gives him a pathway if he can continue to get better on offense over these next few seasons. And another guy that got drafted to a great situation. He got drafted to the Spurs.
Yeah. That's
easy mode. You get drafted to like the Thunder, the Spurs, or the Celtics, or one of those teams. By the way, I feel like I don't. So the question I have for you, because Bill talked about this, Bill always lumps those 3 teams together as having the smart front offices. I don't think the Spurs have earned that still. They got Wemby, and they got Harper.
The results have been they took Harper. Like I guess
everyone would have taken him though.
Yeah, I like the Castle pick. I mean, I feel like everyone was pulling their hair out.
I give him credit for that. I think Castle pick was good.
The Castle pick was. I think everyone was kind of pulling their hair out. I didn't love Castle. I still don't like. He's owned me a little bit like here, like I didn't like him as much as everyone else did in the draft. And I think he's, at the bare minimum turned himself in, but yeah, they have not, I'll say this, the Fox thing has worked better than I thought it would. 100%. I think Harrison Barnes has been a pretty good player for them.
Champagny was a former Sixer that they just smartly picked up.
Yep. Champagny, I think, was a good pickup. And I think, you got to give both the player and Mitch Johnson a lot of credit. Keldon Johnson's reinvention has been one of like the cool, in a nerd way, like one of the cooler things I think in the NBA this year, that he went from being like a bucket and a problem to being like a crash the glass fucking energy guy, is like a bit of a really interesting thing. At the end of the day, though, like how much of this is just, it's impossible to fuck up team building around Wemby.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, don't get me wrong. Historically, they've been great, but like, I'm like, you got the 1st and 2nd pick in the draft and got one generational player and one really good number 2 pick that if he had gone the year before, you would have. The Castle pick was great. I like the Fox trade. I didn't like the Fox contract. It hasn't turned out to hurt them because they have so many guys on rookie contracts. That's all. Like, once again, I'm not saying that they haven't done well. I'm just saying that this was basically born on third base by getting the Wemby pick. They picked the right year to tank. They got lucky, and they ended up with that. Like, they're going to be a very good team for the next decade. It's undeniable. I just don't think that they should be considered on the same level as like the top tier front offices who have obviously also had their own versions of luck, but have a lot more examples of being smart and savvy so far, at least. Maybe the Spurs own me 2 years from now, and they're kind of on the same level. But that's just, I mean, I don't think they should be grouped in with them yet.
I was critiquing them pretty hard last year. I think that they should no longer, they definitely shouldn't be critiqued. I mean, you can't. They're the number 2 team in the NBA. But like, they're not totally innocent yet. You know what I'm saying? We got to see kind of how this thing plays out. Cause again, the cheat code of getting LeBron, like, would we say that if we, with LeBron James, if we go back in time, do we think the Cleveland Cavaliers did a bad job? Like,
no, to be fair, people were shitting on them at the time too, but that was also like a unique fumbling of a player of his caliber in a way that, like the Carlos Boozer thing and the fact they couldn't add any other talent even close to him.
I feel like that didn't happen until like year 6 though, that people started like complaining. Like I remember Antoine Jameson was like the start of that when they signed Antoine Jameson was kind of what I remember, but like they were doing a bad job before, like when he was like really young. So I don't know.
I've watched a lot of rewinder videos where people shit on them for the Carlos Boozer thing, but so just to recap, Con 1, Flag 2, Harper 3, VJ 4, Cedric Coward 5, Trey Johnson 6, Colin Murray-Boyle 7, Ace Bailey 8, Jagar Domen 9, Jace Richardson 10, Hugo Gonzalez 11, Derek Queen 12, Maxine Reynaud 13, and Carter Bryant 14. Before we get out of here, Sam, who are you picking to win March Madness?
I'm not gonna lie, I am completely like kind of like locked out on of March Madness. It's like if you had just asked me, I'd probably be boring and I'd probably say like Michigan is like probably my pick. Especially with them, like I think they lost to Purdue, right? Like
they did, yeah.
So
tough game for our guys on that team.
I'd probably say them. I do think Arkansas is kind of an interesting sneaky pick though. I'm gonna go Arkansas. Let's let Coach Cal cook one more time.
I think both of those picks are probably going to be pretty popular. Mine might be even more popular, but I'm taking Arizona.
Okay, fair enough. Yep. That's another classic. I was gonna say who none of us are picking Duke, huh? Neither of us are. Trill is.
Sorry. I didn't realize I had my screen down, and I didn't realize I turned my mic off. So no, Duke's just too injured.
Yeah. Okay.
Too many injuries. They almost got beat by Florida State in the ACC tournament, and I still think Boozer's number 1, and I would take him with the first pick in the draft, and I still think he's the best player. I just don't think that they'll have enough this year to get the year.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think, like Kansas,
they
what
also got like the hardest draw of all the top seeds. Dude. Yeah. They got like a really tough draw in their bracket. So
will not be picking UNC. That's for sure.
Well, Caleb Wilson's out for the year. Yeah. They kind of like they were good without him, but I don't think that they're like,
no, I don't think they have a shot.
Once again, I have a very basic knowledge. I pretty much start watching college basketball on like the end of January, beginning of February. So I'm not as plugged in as a lot of people. But yeah, I'm going to go Arizona to win it all. I have to fill out my bracket still. I haven't filled out my bracket. If Duke was healthy, I certainly would consider taking them.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see what the top picks look like because Acuff really impressed me in the SEC tournament. I still feel the same way I felt about Boozer this pretty much the last 3 months with him. And then AJ versus, I think they played Texas in the first round. AJ was awesome in the tournament, in their conference tournament as well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what all of these top picks look like. Although I don't want to overreact too much to the tournament in general, but this is where we get some guys that rise up boards over the course of the next week or two. Oh no, hold on. Texas and NC State are in the play-in game tonight. So the winner of that plays BYU. I forgot that they still have the play-in tournament game. So I've talked about this before, but Swain on Texas is the guy that is the most obvious riser to me of all of the prospects that are projected to go in like the late first, early second. Like I think he's the most obvious that is going to rise probably to the lottery over the course of the next few weeks. And then, yeah, everyone else is kind of a known commodity, I feel like. I don't really feel like a lot of these. Oh, and Mara from Michigan is the other guy I think is going to end up rising.
Yeah.
And if they make a deep run, he could end up going lotto just because the lack of bigs in this draft, the size, the skill. He's an incredible rim protector.
I was gonna pick Michigan, but I do think we are primed for a Yaxel Fab 5 style mental blunder to lose Michigan a pivotal tournament game.
Well, he had some big moments in the Big Ten tournament. He's also like, once again, with Boozer and Duke potentially being on the ropes here because of the injuries, like he should be the best player in the tournament. He's the oldest good player. Like he should be able to kind of stamp himself as the best player here.
I think he's going to have 2 to 3 like electric games. And I do think he is going to dog one of their like Elite 8 game or something and blow it for them like at some point, or like a Final Four game.
Purdue kind of had them in the mud a little bit in that game. If I remember correctly, I think he actually ended up playing a pretty decent offensive game in that game. And Mara's mobility was tested in the pick and roll, and Merez Johnson, who I like Merez Johnson, and I think he will end up going higher. But there's definitely a lot of offensive concerns with him as well. But that team should be able to make a deep run. Like they have a ton of talent. Don't love the guard play on that team, which is why I'm going to take Arizona, because I just think their guard play is way better. But yeah, it should be fun. This is going to be. I'm hoping we get more upsets this year, but I think the upsets in the college tournaments might just be a little bit dead because of NIL. It just feels like we're not going to get as many as those. I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, we'll be back later. I'll fill out my bracket and I'll read off my bracket on the Patreon episode later this week. I'm going to lock it in.
I'll do the girlfriend bracket because I'm going to be I don't know fucking anything. I just watch NBA guys, dude. So
I'm pretty much just going based on my last 2 months of watching, really. It's not
I'll be bringing out my girlfriend style vibes based bracket that will inevitably do pretty well because I know nothing and I'm just the Arizona A looks cute to me. So
perfect. All right. Also never doubt Calvin Sampson. Houston will make a deep run as they always do.
Definitely Final Four for sure. Stamping.
Peace.